Good morning and welcome to my garden. My Syntropics row is developing nicely. I have elderberry here, pigeon pea, geranium and various natives planted along this row here. You can see my pigeon pea has flowered and has now developed the fruit, the seeds, and there are quite a lot of them on the bush. Pigeon pea is very prolific when it comes to its seed production. As you can see, it has a lot of seed pods on the bush here, which is great if you want lots of pigeon pea. However, it can cause problems for those who are not interested in plants coming up everywhere. So this morning, I'm actually going to prune off all the branches that have seed pods. I will use them as chop and drop as they were intended, but I'm hoping that I've learnt this information soon enough that they're not all going to germinate. I've ended up just chopping these pigeon pea plants back to knee height. You can see this one here, it's about my knee height, and I've just chopped it off on every branch. That one I didn't, so I'll just pinch that one out. See this one here, I was pruning down to, there's the last seed pod, so I'd take it off here. However, that turned out to be knee height and it was taking a lot of effort to look down every length of branch and figure out exactly where the lowest seed pod was, and then sometimes I'd miss one. So about knee height, that one's a bit above knee height, but pretty much all of them have seed pods down to about knee height. So I'm just going to take them off at knee height, make my job quicker and easier. This is actually quite exciting for me to be able to prune some of my plants to put on the chop and drop row. That is the purpose of this row. That's why I planted these here, so that as they grew, they could become chop and drop. It is better to prune plants when there is an adequate water supply so they can come back. And so I wasn't going to prune these, but of course, with every situation, there are different factors to consider. And clearly it was time to prune these pigeon pea because they were going to become a problem for me if I didn't take control right here and now. And so now that row is pruned and they can grow back again and become chop and drop again for me. They are legumes, so they'll be doing great things for the plants, for the mycorrhizal network, for the soil. And I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of these plants grow up so they can be chopped and dropped too. I did end up choosing to put the seed pods on the chop and drop row. I guess this is my experiment to see if it becomes a problem. That's part of the fun of gardening, experimenting, learning from what you've done, deciding whether it's worth doing it again. Next season, I'll remember to prune them sooner. Here's another plant that I need to watch its flowering to know when I need to chop and drop it. I've tried to get it identified. Last, someone suggested it was some kind of oak or elm, but we didn't get any closer than that. This is a beautiful tree and make a lovely street tree. However, it drops an incredible number of seeds and they strike very easily. So I'm concerned to prevent this from spreading everywhere. And so I have chosen, whenever it flowers, that to be the sign that it's time to chop it for chop and drop, because I cannot afford to let this get out of control here and take over our lovely backyard. Someone did warn me that elderberry can be invasive. Here's an example of what they were talking about. That's an elderberry that I did not plant, and it's now growing over there towards my vegetable garden. Now, one plant isn't a problem. However, as I've been pruning these elderberry, I have pulled out several plants, and here is another one that's growing from a root under the ground. So yeah, we want plants that can grow fast, and often the weed species are the most ideal for that. But what happens if I'm injured and I can't work my garden for 6 to 12 months? I'm going to have a weed forest that someone's going to have to clean up. I don't want to create problems. And with my chop and drop plants, I think I'll be working on a process of identifying what's going to be a problem and getting rid of those plants and replacing them with something that's not going to be a problem. And if I don't manage it so well, it's not going to create a major problem for the next person who'll want to look after my garden. One of the things that concerns me about the methods encouraged with Syntropics is that they encourage the planting of everything and anything. They especially encourage the planting of plants that will grow happily and strongly without assistance. Often these plants end up becoming invasive. Take the elderberry, for instance. Let's have a look down here, and you can see that the elderberry has got, is this a seedling? No, it's a runner. So it's throwing a root all the way out here. Now that's a potential problem. There are 3 roots off that elderberry that are growing out into the middle of my lawn. Because we mow here, they'll be kept under control. But what about on this other side? I have already found elderberry shoots on the other side of the chop and drop, and I'm a bit nervous about that. Being the person who looks after this garden single-handedly, I don't want to create work for myself. I certainly don't want to create problems for if I ever can't look after it and someone else has to look after it and they have to deal with all these invasive plants or these plants that take off and can't be controlled. So I think over time I will be looking at replacing the elderberry, taking it out of my garden and putting something else in place. So this side of the bed is my chop and drop side, and it's just had its first chop and drop. So some of these plants along this row didn't have a lot to prune off. I've got Braina, a pigeon pea. This leptospermum looks like it's dead. I don't think it survived the wet time we've just had. This is a form of basil, Senna Callistum Kings Park Special, Senna. These are leeks left over from when this was veggie garden, and there's some more there. This plant here is a salvia, Tristaniopsis, pigeon pea, Braina. I'm having a look at my chop and drop row here on contour 1 on the north, and it seems that some of the plants I've chosen are not entirely suitable. This is a Braina. You can see that it's been sorely attacked by something. It's been eaten right back. I don't know whether that's a time of year thing for this plant. I don't know whether it happened as a result of me pruning it back hard. I do think that it has not come back nearly as well as it should have. So I'm thinking I need to find a replacement for this one. This leptospermum did not cope with being chopped and dropped. I think it's dead. It hasn't come back at all. So that's a problem. That one can't be doing the job. This Senna Sephora has come back well. It hasn't grown very fast, but it has come back. So I think it could be a useful plant to keep. But I need something that grows fast because I can't do regular chop and drop if my plants aren't growing fast. Callistum Kings Park Special. Now this one's doing okay. It wasn't very big when I chopped it, but I just took the main branch out and it's branching quite nicely. So I think that'll be okay to keep there. This is Senna Aclinis. It's growing straight up. Senna Sephora is more of a low, sprawling Senna, whereas Senna Aclinis is very much an upright plant. That one came back okay from being pruned. This Tristaniopsis, I'm not even sure if this one did get pruned because it's so low. I do know that this Tristaniopsis was smothered by a kale plant when I planted it here, but it just isn't growing fast enough for it to be a good chop and drop plant. In contrast, this one here, it's growing really well, but it's still very slow. I'm happy to leave it there, but in terms of chop and drop, it's not real suitable for the task either. Pigeon pea, beautiful, doing exactly what it needs to do. It's growing lots of foliage, lots of little branchings. That's great. This Braina seems to have been attacked by some insect. It's late in summer in southeast Queensland, and there are a lot of grasshoppers around at the moment, and that's probably what's attacking the leaves and making it look like that. So if I'm going to be doing Syntropics properly, if I'm going to have some good, vigorous chop and drop plants, these are not the ones for me. Happy to leave them there, but I'm going to have to add extra ones in the between because I'm not going to get much chop and drop out of this batch because they just grow too slowly. Whereas over on contour 1 on the east, I have got such a good load of chop and drop. Elderberry and pigeon pea are the main features here. This is far better for chop and drop. This is what we need. This is what our goal is, to have a nice lush chop and drop row that can be chopped down. I do have some natives in the between. I have the feeling they've been a bit smothered out. Maybe when they get taller, they'll be stronger. This is Waterhousia floribunda, necklace pod. As you can see, quite a lot of grass has moved into this row. That's not a problem because grass makes great chop and drop. I did have some ornamental plants which I was hoping to use as chop and drop, and the grass may be smothering some of them. So I'll pull out the couch. Maybe in true Syntropics I wouldn't need to do that because the bigger trees would grow and would shade out the couch. In the meantime, here in southeast Queensland, the couch will take over and smother everything. So I will pull some of it out. There have been some of the trees that are planted that have died off, so I'll want to replace them with other trees. There are a couple of plants I planted that really do not fit the description of fast growing and great biomass producers, so I think I'll be replacing them. I may not pull them out, I may just plant another couple of trees beside it. The chop and drop row has come back very strongly after its prune a couple of months ago. I pruned it down to knee height. Well, it's above my height now. It's a beautiful rainbow. Good morning. So this is ready for another chop back, but I'm going to wait until we get some rain, which should be in the next couple of days. It'll be easier for the plants to bounce back after the rain. Okay, we're all finished chopping and dropping. My chop and drop row gave me a lot of biomass and the plants are going to grow back, but I'm wondering how much they're going to grow back. For example, this pigeon pea here, now that I've chopped it, it looks rather dead on most of these branches, and I'm wondering if it will come back or whether I'm going to have to plant another tree. This is elderberry. I'm wondering if that'll come back too, because these do look rather dead and maybe I need to prune off some of these dead branches. Being there just for chop and drop, that's not a problem if I have to plant something else, although the goal is to have the roots continue to grow and the plants around can benefit from it. I've done this now at the end of summer. Chop and drop is best done when you do have rain. We've got a cyclone coming, so we're going to get some good rain. And it actually occurs to me that perhaps I should have left the chop and drop till after the cyclone, because the chop and drop plants would have effectively broken the wind and potentially saved my papayas from being blown over. Hopefully they stay where they are. I do have that windbreak down there that should help to redirect the wind.